So, Pastor Erica reminded us last week that in our tradition, in our church, we follow a cycle of readings that give for us each Sunday of the year, according to the season of the year, specific places in the Bible that we can hear from. It's something that we share with sisters and brothers and other congregations, both around Valparaiso and around the world, in fact. And it's this great gift that we can know we are hearing the Word of God, the same words as our sisters and brothers hear around the world. It's also a gift for us as preachers because these readings are appointed, it moves us a little bit beyond the sort of favorite verses that we might be liable to choose as pastor into some corners of the Bible that can be challenging for us. And we love this tradition. It gives us the chance. And Pastor Erica reminded us that when we move into what we call our green seasons, which can be in the summer, but then also here in these months leading up to Lent, it gives us the gift of being able to hear this whole sort of swath of the Bible all in a row, so we can kind of hear things in context. Except for today. Because along with our Sunday readings, we also have these festival days that get appointed for us. And there is a festival that falls every year on February 2nd, no matter what day of the week it is. And it just so happens that this year, that festival day falls on Sunday, and so it gives us this chance to hear a reading that we don't always get to hear hardly ever. But to hear this, we need to put it into our imagination and go backwards a little bit in our memory, because this story today, the gospel today, brings us back to Christmas. And remember then, in your imagination, all of our favorite stories of Christmas about angels singing and shepherds terrified, and then going to see the baby. Remember the baby wrapped in the cloth and lying in the feed trough. And the shepherds come and say these remarkable things. And now the shepherds have come and gone. Now the songs of the angels, the echoes have faded from the hills. And the shepherds are back out in their fields. And now we have Joseph and Mary adjusting to this new life that's been given them, just as happens every time first-time parents are given this new life. So Mary's recovering, her body recovering from the stress and strain of childbirth. And Joseph, the carpenter, he's learning how to hold a fragile, tough newborn baby like he means it, because it takes us a while to learn how to do that. And they've been adjusting, getting to know this new child there, and it's been 8 days as they've been recovering and adjusting and getting to know him. And now, in their tradition, the tradition that is shared by all of our Jewish sisters and brothers, on the 8th day, it is time for Jesus to be circumcised, to be marked as a child of the covenant, as part of God's promise. And we move beyond that, and now they are at home, and Jesus is recovering, and they're getting to know this child. Jesus has these plump little fingers with the little rubber band knuckles that are holding on to Joseph's calloused carpenter's hands. And Jesus is still spitting up on everybody. And they're getting to know who this child is and what this will mean for them. There is this time period in their tradition, 40 days, when they have this chance to adjust, to learn, to get to know who this will be and what life is going to be. 40 days. And now after 40 days of getting to know him and who they're going to be as a family together, it is time for them to begin moving into ordinary life. And as devout Jews, there are a series of rituals to follow that welcome them back into ordinary life. And so they take little baby Jesus to the temple, and they offer their prayers and offerings and sacrifice, and they mark this day with prayer and ritual. And this festival gives us a chance to listen in and get to know this Holy Family, get to see what life is like there. And it is a reminder for us of something that's worth remembering, something that's important for us to remember, and that is that Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus are Jewish. They are Middle Eastern Jews, and they are devout and observant Jews living there in Israel, following the rituals and practices. We also learned that they are poor, because in the law, in the Hebrew Scriptures, there's options given for this ritual and what you offer as part of marking your re-entry into ordinary life. And the options are a lamb, or if you are too poor, you can do a dove or pigeons. And that's what we heard that they offered. So they are devout Jews. And they're also very poor. And it's helpful for us to remember that. Helpful for us to remember that Jesus is a Middle Eastern Jew. Because there we see how scandalous our faith and our hope really is. We believe in a guy who lived at a particular time, in a particular place, among a particular people. And we believe and we know that salvation for all has come through him there. We don't disassociate ourselves from that and make Jesus some sort of a vague good idea, the sort of floating cloud, misty cloud of love or anything like that. But we believe that and know who Jesus is. Jesus is a Jew who lived among Jews in a Jewish country that was under occupation. He lived poor. He was a peasant. He gathered with Jewish friends. He followed Jewish rituals. And it's important for us to remember how specific our faith is, because when we lose how specific that is, it can be awfully easy for us to make Jesus over into whatever image we want. And usually what we do is we make him look like us. And it's so for Arians, Jesus becomes the perfect Aryan. For slaveholders, Jesus becomes the perfect slave apologist, as happened in our own country, even in our own Lutheran churches. To capitalists, Jesus can become the perfect capitalist. To whatever political persuasion you follow, Democrat, Republican, anarchist, socialist, whatever the other rest of the mishmash might be, Jesus becomes the perfect whatever that is. But that's silly, isn't it? When we lose track of who Jesus really is, we make Jesus to be a better version of ourselves. But if God was nothing more than a better version of ourselves, we don't need God. And our hope has never been on who we are. Our hope is always who Jesus is. Jesus is a Middle Eastern Jew who came at this particular time among God's chosen, beloved people, living under occupation, soldiers at the corners, and today, on this day, he is a helpless Jewish baby brought to the temple by his devout parents, to be welcomed back into ordinary life and into Jewish society. The only thing is, he is also the fulfillment of all God's promises to God's chosen beloved people through all the centuries. But God's promises have never been, I will whisk you away and get you out of the world. God has never said that. God's intention and God's promises have always been salvation in the world for the sake of the world. And Jesus coming to the temple here is the fulfillment of that in ways that they could never have imagined, that we hardly dare imagine. Because God has moved in. God has come. God is with us. This baby is God. So no wonder Simeon, faithful and devout, he's had a whisper in his ear from God and through God's Spirit that God is about to fulfill God's promises within his own lifetime. No wonder when Simeon sees him and swoops him up to hold him, no wonder Simeon, looking up at the sky with tears tracking down his cheeks, can say, Lord, now I'm ready to die. No wonder Anna, there in the temple, wizened and wise, she has been following and steeping herself in God's love and God's promises her whole life long. No wonder Anna there peeking into the blankets of baby Jesus. No wonder she starts singing, praising God, letting everybody know this is something we never anticipated. No wonder Simeon turns to Mary and Joseph and says, this is the baby. Your ordinary baby is something extraordinary. And he will be resisted. And it's going to cut your own heart in two. No wonder, because that's how it works. Whenever we see God at work and God in us, and we come face to the face with the fact that we need God, that those bits in us, and it's in all of us too, that want to be God, would just as soon shove God out of the way. And yes, we will kill for that too, won't we? So that we know that we are in charge. Only thing is, our hope cannot be in who we are. It has to be in who Jesus is. No wonder as baby Jesus comes to the temple that day, those who know how to look see God doing something new. In the midst of God's chosen people, salvation for God's promised people for the sake of the world, salvation coming to everybody, you and me, through this little Jewish baby. No wonder we sing. Because when we see God doing something surprising, when we see God fulfilling promises, when we see God and how God is at work in the world, when we see God in the midst of us, God with us, we have no choice. There's nothing else to do. We have to sing. We just have to. Because God is so good. Has come to take all the suffering and the bad bits, to go through all of that, so we will know we can never go anywhere or experience anything where God hasn't already been. That's who our God is. That's who Jesus is. No wonder we sing.